Welcome to this long overdue van tour video. So without any further ado,
come on in.
All right, you're officially in the van, and one of the first things we want to show you is our bed. And no, this is not how we sleep in it. It has some movement towards it. So we're actually going to show you exactly how the bed works. We're going to set down the camera and put up a little timer to show you exactly how long it takes too.
Didn't take that long.
And this time right here is not actually, the official time. We hung out on the bed for a second, but I would say it normally takes about 45 seconds to make our bed and just that to put it away.
Up next is our clothes. So we decided to go with upper cabinets to store them. I get 3 and Ben gets 2, and it honestly ended up being plenty of storage for us. Another feature to note about our upper cabinets is the cane we ended up using. So we went with this to make it feel a little bit more homey, add some texture, and we really love how it turned out.
All right, you can't forget ventilation in a van. We don't, because again, it gets hot. It's hot right now. But let's talk first about the bunk windows in the back. We put 2 of them in. They both have sliders where we can open these up at night. And then we also have vent fans, Maxx air vent fans. This is an intake and exhaust, where the one in the front is just an exhaust. We've actually been blown away how cool it stays in the van. You can have both of these windows open, and as long as the fan is pulling air out, it creates a really nice draft for us. When building a van, you have to use every last ounce of space because you don't have a lot of it. I think this van is about 70 square feet, so not a lot of space to put all your stuff. So these benches are not just benches. Obviously, there is storage underneath. This is Mallory's side. It's a bit more tidy than mine. We also made sure to put storage in the back as well. So on my side, again, we keep things in here like our backpacks, stuff that we normally wouldn't need in the cabinets or in the back, a little more accessible items. But I did want to mention in the back of this bench, we have our tabletop. And this is truly just an extension of a piece that we didn't use of this butcher block on our countertops. But we take this tabletop and put it on our Lagun mount, is what it's called. You commonly see them in RVs. It goes right in this hole, you tighten it up, and then it's able to swivel in a lot of different ways. So we put this on when we're eating dinner or doing work or playing games in the van. All right, and moving forward, the Ford Transit, if you know it, it comes with a lot of big pieces of metal ribbing, and a lot of this is just filled in with insulation. But I took one of the wider areas and actually built in a little toiletry cabinet for us. This actually just shows you the depth of the walls in the van, and we, again, just decided to use every little bit of space that we could.
Something else to mention is our decor in the van. So it was important to us that even though it's a small space, it really felt homey, but also not too cluttered. So we ended up adding some art on the walls, live plants, which of course always make a place feel more homey in our opinion, and then went with a color scheme that to us was calming and fit our personalities. All right, moving forward to the kitchen area, which is of course one of the most important and used areas of the van. We'll start with our 12-volt truck fridge. We found it to be really great. There's even a little freezer in there. Below that we have our drawer where we keep our pots and pans, and then also have our NutriBullet. Another essential to a van life is a junk drawer. You just gotta have one. And above that, last but not least, our trash can.
Another thing to mention on this side of the kitchen is we have our little, I call it our control center. Starting from the top, we have our battery monitor, and you guessed it, it monitors our battery, kind of how much is left to use, how many amps we're getting at all times. Yeah, definitely important to keep that somewhere that you can see it. Underneath that we have our inverter. If I turn this on right now, we have a 1,000-watt inverter in the back, which we'll get to in a second, that gives power to 2 different outlets in our kitchen, so we can charge things like computers, but also coffee grinders or our NutriBullet. And then right below this we have 2 different light switches. This is the main light switch with a dimmer as well, and then this light switch goes to underneath our cabinets to give us some extra light at night when we're cooking. Last but not least, in the control center here is this button right here. This actually turns on the fan to our Nature's Head composting toilet. Again, that we'll get to in just a second. And you can't forget in this area our beautiful little shoe rack that we created into this cabinet. Shoes are just one of those things that just seem to be constantly getting in the way, so we created nice little cubbies for them in the front of this kitchen cabinet. Moving to this side of the kitchen, which there are definitely a few more elements involved, we'll start with our sink. We actually just went with cold water. We'll probably eventually make a video on things we regret. That might be one of them. Cold water is great, but doesn't make for the cleanest dishes. So there is a button right here that you can turn on the water pump in the back, and then we have running water. Underneath the sink is not the most glamorous, but it's essentially most of our cleaning supplies and then our gray water tank as well. We went with a removable gray water tank, but at the same time, it actually drains throughout the bottom of the van. We're big fans with how we set up our gray water tank. We've heard horror stories of how often people have to empty theirs. So because of the size of our tank and also that we have the ability to drain through the bottom of the van, it's been definitely the right decision for us. Two more areas here that, food and kitchen accessories. First being our upper kitchen cabinet here. These are things that we will quickly grab and that need to be more accessible. Peanut butter, apple cider vinegar, honey, that good stuff. And then down here, we love this little cabinet here. It's not just a cabinet, but it has pull-out drawers as well, 3 to be exact. We have all of our coffee supplies up here. Even fit an Instant Pot down here at the bottom. So this is super nice to have for a lot of storage, and you can kind of keep it open while you cook and pull things out as you need it. We went with a Gasland stovetop, which has been awesome for us. Cooks very, very high heat. We just got to watch out for that, but we just use a lighter, start it up, and then we have propane. It's connected in the back to a tank that we'll get to here in a second. But this is very important that you have some type of ventilation in the van. Like I mentioned before, we have 2 fans, one in the back, one in the front here, and this one is just exhaust, so it's being able to pull out any smoke or smells that we have from cooking through this fan while we use the stove.
Moving forward to the front of the kitchen, we can't forget to talk about our window. So our van actually did not come with this. We put it in ourselves, which was quite scary, but it's great. It allows great natural light, good views, and then at night we have a curtain that we put up with these hooks just to give us some privacy. We also have our little library up here, which we love. We keep some candles up here, and a spice rack, which we added on later in the van because we realized we were needing to access them quickly, so we're really grateful for that. This next part of our kitchen I'm most excited to talk about, which includes our fancy drawer. This was a special request by me, and Ben made my dreams come true. So up here we keep our silverware or plasticware, some of our cooking utensils, and under here, our dishes. And we have saved the star of the show for last but not least. Ta-da! Yes, that's right. Our Nature's Head composting toilet is technically in our kitchen. We love this thing. We have a little secure hook here for when we're driving, and it just pulls out like this. Voila! And honestly, there is a lot we could go into about our Nature's Head toilet, but we already made a whole video on it, so you can check that one out.
All right, the last part of this van tour is not in the front cab here, but actually in our garage, so come with me. All right, it's not that sexy like this, and it's honestly a little hard to explain, so just give me 1 second and I'm gonna empty all this out. So as you can see, there's a lot of space to store stuff in our garage, but what I really want to get to is not what we took out, but what's still here. First things first is our 30-gallon water tank. This is where our fresh water is. Our water fill up is right here. This is where we put fresh water in, and then the drain is right here, intake right here. And don't forget our water pump. This is very important as to getting the fresh water all the way up to our sink, which I mentioned before. Right next to our water tank is our vented propane locker. There is a full-size propane tank in here. And the special part about this propane locker is there's actually a hole through the bottom of this locker, through the bottom of the van, because propane is heavier than air. If it was to leak, the propane would leak not into our van, you know, making a very dangerous situation, but through the bottom of this locker and through the bottom of the van. Something else we like to mention is how our van is insulated. This is actually Havlock sheep's wool. It comes all the way from New Zealand and it smells like a sheep, but it's the most organic way to insulate a small tiny home space like this, and it's pretty affordable as well. I do also want to show you how we get to our solar panels, our 300 watts of solar panels up top, and that's with what is called a telescope ladder. We didn't know these existed beforehand, but we're very thankful for them now. So this is almost a must in a van when you need to clean the solar panels if you don't want to put a ladder on the outside of your van. Last thing I have to point out before Mallory is going to show you all about how the electrical works, is how we open our door from the bed. So the actual handle of this Ford Transit door is all the way down here. So we rigged up this little contraption to be able to open it from the top.
All right, coming down to the end of this tour, we can't forget to talk about our electrical system. I can't take creds for putting any of this together, but I can explain it in a way that is a little more palatable than the way Ben explains it. First, let's talk about batteries. We ended up going with two 200 amp hour AGM batteries. They work great, but let's talk about what they're hooked up to. We went with 3 different ways to charge our batteries. We'll start with our first and favorite, which is our solar panels. So we have 3 100-watt solar panels on top of the van. Pretty much this just converts solar energy into 12-volt energy. So our second option is right here, which is battery to battery. So what Ben did was hook this up to the alternator of our vehicle. So when we're driving, it pretty much charges from our battery to these batteries. And our third option is right here. You might know it as shore power, but it's essentially a trickle charge via a port on the outside of our van that we can hook up to an outlet on the outside of a friend's house. Another thing to note is that we have an inverter. So we went with 1,000 watts for our inverter, and it has worked great. We use it for things like NutriBullet, charging our phones and laptops, also our Instant Pot, pretty much anything that requires a higher voltage. I could bore you with the rest of all of this stuff, but essentially what it is circuit breakers and switches to turn things on and off. Alright, that's our electrical and how we power everything inside our van. If you want more details, we have another video fully devoted to this that you can check out.
All right, we hope you enjoyed the tour. If you're still around, we have a few more things we gotta ask of you. One, check out our other videos. We kind of did this backwards. Usually people do a van tour video and then other videos. We got tons of other videos you can go watch, so subscribe to the channel. And then number 2, we also have a
Instagram.
That's right.
If you want to keep up with us more on a day-to-day basis, great way to see where we're at and what we're doing.
She said it first. And then, like mentioned earlier in the video, all of the products that we used are below in the description. So if you're building out a van, it's gonna make it really easy for you.
And going off that, as always, please ask us questions. Especially if you're trying to build your own tiny home on wheels. Feel free to reach out to us, comment below. We would be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
All right, guys, thanks for hanging around. We will see you next time.